Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Matheson, and today I'm going to go ahead and provide you guys with a 3-point perspective tutorial. Okay, so really quick here, just like how I did with the 2-point perspective, I'm going to show you the differences from 1-point and 2-point perspective in contrast to each other, as well as in contrast to 3-point perspective. That way you can kind of get a grasp as to what's going on here, okay? So, when you have 1-point perspective, you have just one vanishing point, okay, that rests on a horizon line, alright? This X right here is your vanishing point. And so there are specific lines in 1-point perspective that don't go towards the vanishing point with 1-point perspective. Okay, and that is the lines that are parallel to the top and the bottom of the canvas, as well as with the left and right of the canvas as well. Okay, so these are parallel lines. You can always tell when you are going to need those sorts of lines when you're dealing with either a front face or a back face. Let me go ahead and demonstrate, okay? So this is a front face right here, okay, so double F. So now when you use the vanishing point, it's when you have foreshortened lines that are going like so, okay? So that's when you use the vanishing point. But you might want to include this as well. Most artists that I know of tend to draw things as if they're transparent in order to measure things that you normally wouldn't be able to see, like such as the legs of a table. You may not be able to see where they connect at the bottom of the table, but you're going to do all the measurements so that you know where they connect and just how thick those legs of the table happen to be. That sort of thing, okay? So now we're going to work with the back face here. We go ahead and freehand, I guess, lines that are parallel with the left and right of the canvas, as well as with top and bottom of the canvas, okay? And so this is a back face, so I'm going to just write in on this BF, back face. That's when you're going to be drawing lines that are parallel with the top, the bottom, the left, and the right of the canvas in 1-point perspective when you're dealing with the back face or with the front face. So that's how 1-point perspective works. Now with 2-point perspective, you have a horizon line just like with 1-point perspective, but instead you have now 2 vanishing points. Okay, but there's one defining difference from 1-point perspective to 2-point perspective, and that is this. It is only the vertical lines, the lines that are parallel with the left and the right of the canvas, those are the only lines that are not going towards a vanishing point. I oftentimes say that they're free-handed. That's not necessarily true. I mean, it can be. You can freehand them, especially if you're drawing in perspective with freehand. Most people like having rulers or assistants to help them. But basically, in order to start constructing a 2-point perspective box or a rectangle or what have you, you go ahead and you draw a vertical line. And then you go ahead and with the top and then the bottom, just go ahead and send it on over to the vanishing point to the left. And then you do the same thing to the right. And then you go ahead and you find out what your right face is by drawing a vertical line. And then you draw another vertical line in order to find out what your left face is. And then you go ahead and you use the left vanishing point on the top and then on the bottom. And then you do the same thing on the other side. And then once again, we go ahead and we draw out a vertical line for the back corner. Okay, we're not dealing with front faces anymore and back faces. Those don't really truly exist. I mean, I guess in a way we have a back face here, back face number 1. Then we have a back face number 2 right here. I guess technically you do, but it's hard to really orient yourself with front face number 1 and front face number 2. I mean, because like here we have a front face 1 and then a front face 2 and then back face 1 and then back face 2. It's really hard to really orient yourself with the faces like you can with 1-point perspective. Okay, so basically you have a front corner, right corner, left corner, and a back corner. And oftentimes when I was teaching this in the past, I've said that there's a right face and a left face. And that's really all that I really pay attention to. The left and right faces that happen to be on the front of the box. But, you know, ultimately, it will always be easier for you to orient yourself around 2-point perspective by perceiving the corners, which are the vertical lines that are parallel with the left and right of your canvas. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to talk about 3-point perspective. What is the big difference from 3-point perspective in relationship to 1-point and 2-point? Okay, so let's do 3-point. Okay, so once again, we still have a horizon line. And I've gone ahead and placed this up because ultimately, this is the weird thing about 1-point and 2-point perspective in relationship to 3-point perspective. Okay, so with 1-point perspective, you have whatever it is that you're drawing. So we have this box right here, okay? Let's go ahead and just draw a square, all right? And this is just a pure side view, okay? Side view. Okay, so this is like an orthographic side view. Your camera, no matter what, is always going to be pointed like that. Now, this camera can move up, but it's always going to be looking straight ahead, okay? That's how 1-point perspective works, and that's also coincidentally how 2-point perspective works, okay? So both 1-point perspective works like this, and 2-point perspective works like this. The only difference is this orthographic view box would more so look like that, okay? I mean, because it would have a corner right there, okay, right where that circle is. All right, so that's the big difference here. Whereas with 3-point perspective, with another side view, let's go ahead and demonstrate 3-point side view. 3-point perspective is more like this. So you have a box, and your camera is either pointed down at the scene or it's being pointed kind of up at the scene. Okay, so that's the big difference with all of this. And 3-point perspective, you can really get some really dynamic stuff with it, but you know, you don't want to overdo it. Let me press Control Z a bunch of times. And if you feel like you need to take a screenshot of some of this stuff that I'm drawing out on the screen right here, feel free to do so. But anyhow, so with 3-point perspective, once again, we have a horizon line, and we have a vanishing point on the left and a vanishing point to the right, just like we did with a 2-point perspective. However, the third vanishing point is somewhere down below. Okay, and all right, so there is nothing with 3-point perspective that is parallel. Absolutely nothing in 3-point perspective that's parallel with the left, right, top, or bottom of the canvas. Every line is going to a vanishing point. Basically, it's like 2-point perspective in every respect beyond that, okay? So with 3-point perspective, your vertical line is drawn out with the third vanishing point, okay? So we went ahead and drew out a line from that vanishing point, and then we go ahead and use the left vanishing point at the top and bottom of it, okay? And then we use the right vanishing point at the top and bottom of it again. All right, and then we go ahead and use the third vanishing point, which is this one right here, and we go ahead and we draw out a line going to the third vanishing point, and then another line that goes from the third vanishing point. And then we use the left vanishing point, and then we use it again at the bottom where these two little lines intersect. And then where these two lines intersect, we go ahead and send it on over to the right vanishing point, and to the top, we go ahead and send it over to the right vanishing point. So if you need a screenshot that, go ahead and feel free to do so that you have something to kind of pull as a bit of a reference. And you might not be able to really understand what's going on here, but basically we constructed a box that we are looking down at So let me just draw this out in black. And just by the shape of this box, you can tell that it's rectangular and that we are looking down at it, that it's rather long. It's much taller than it is wide. Okay, so that's what we drew out. Now, you can do something different with 3-point perspective as well. You can have your horizon line down at the bottom of your canvas to kind of get somewhat of a worm's eye view. And you can place your third vanishing point up here, okay? And what you can do is you can go ahead and draw out your front corner like so, and then you can go ahead and use your left vanishing point at the bottom, and then use your left vanishing point for the top. Let's go ahead and make sure that this box is taller than it is wide, just because it kind of helps illustrate what it is that 3-point perspective is doing. And then let's go ahead and use the right vanishing point on the top. And then we go ahead and use our right vanishing point on the bottom. And then let's go ahead and use the third vanishing point here. Maybe let's widen that out a little bit more. Yeah, that looks cool. And let's use it over here like so. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and use the right vanishing point right at this intersection right there. And let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and drag it on over like so, and then use the right vanishing point at this intersection right here, and then use the left vanishing point on this intersection and this intersection right here. Okay, so let's do that. Now, it may be difficult for you to see what this is. Feel free to take a screenshot, and then I'll go ahead and draw it out in black, okay, so that you can clearly see what we drew out. Okay, so that's what we drew out right there. You're definitely looking up at the scene. There's a lot of foreshortening, a hell of a lot more foreshortening with 3-point perspective than there is in 1-point and 2-point perspective. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about how to draw in 3-point perspective a little bit more, and kind of do a little bit of an exercise as to what we should be doing when we're drawing it. Okay, so let's do what we've always done when first getting introduced to a different type of perspective, okay? Let's just go ahead and create the grid. And at least inside of Clip Studio Paint, this is how you go about doing it, okay? So first notice that we have a paper layer and then layer 1, okay? That's all we got. We go up to this layer menu and we just select ruler frame and then create perspective ruler. We have the option for 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. Okay, and we press OK, and we now have a perspective ruler, and we've automatically switched to the operation tool set to object. Okay, we click on this new sort of grid or system that we got here, and this right here in the center controls the horizon line, and this is our second vanishing point, and this is our first vanishing point. Let's make sure that we just, at least for the sake of this video, keep the vanishing points on the canvas. Okay, you can have them way off the canvas if you want. Like, there's nothing that says that you can't. It's just for the sake of keeping things easy for this video, we'll just keep it on there. It does tend to create some rather dramatic looking scenes when they're on the canvas, but like just really sharp angles is kind of what you wind up with. Typically with 3-point perspective, what you want, since the camera is going to be looking kind of down at objects or up at objects, you kind of either want the horizon line to be on the upper portion of the canvas or on the lower end of the canvas is pretty much what you want. Basically, if you have the horizon line on the upper portion of the canvas, you do not want your third vanishing point way up here, okay? Because if your vanishing point is up here, that means you're looking up. And if your horizon line is up here, then that means you're kind of looking down at the scene. So having your third vanishing point up here and your horizon line up here, you're creating what's called an oxymoron. This vanishing point up here is saying I'm looking up. This horizon line right here up at the top of your canvas says you're looking down. It's an oxymoron. It's something that makes no sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this third vanishing point down on the canvas, and you can kind of see how things are going to work out here. Alright, so just real quick here, we have our vanishing point number 1 right here, okay? And then we have vanishing point number 2 right here. And at least in this case, we have our vanishing point number 3 right here. So if you had, say, a character standing in the scene right there, this vanishing point, this third vanishing point, represents 100% down, okay? It is down, okay? So all the lines that are coming from vanishing point number 3 are literally like up and down. So let me go ahead and create a new layer, and I'm going to call this 1, okay? And I'm just going to use a red color and draw out a whole bunch of lines heading out towards vanishing point number 1. Now, this is not necessarily a step that you need to make, especially if you're working digitally. But if you don't have a perspective grid or any type of rulers inside of your software, you might want to do this. Or if you're just having trouble visualizing what's going on inside of your scene, you might want to do this. I don't know. It all depends on you. I think that when I was first learning how to draw, me just kind of drawing this stuff out kind of helped me out. Okay, so that's that. Let me create a new layer and name that layer 2. And I'm going to use the color green to signify lines that are going towards the second vanishing point. Okay, awesome. And then I'm going to use purple, and I'm going to create a new layer and call it 3, and all of these purple lines are going to signify lines going towards the third vanishing point. Okay, excellent. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all 3 of these, press Ctrl G, and call this perspective grid. Okay, and pressing Ctrl G put them into a group, and so now I can just change the opacity of the entire group. We can still see what's going on. We can still see the green, red, and purple lines and what they're doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new layer. I'm just going to call this black. Alright, and we're going to practice just like how we always have, okay? So what we're going to do is we can go ahead and draw a line going towards the third vanishing point, okay? And that is straight up and down. And then we use the left vanishing point, which is the vanishing point number 1, and we can go ahead and draw a line going to the first vanishing point at the top and bottom of that first line. And then we use the third vanishing point to close it up. Alright, and it's kind of difficult to really see how things are going to kind of turn out, just simply because there's so much foreshortening that's involved with 3-point perspective. 2-point perspective has more foreshortening than 1-point perspective, but it has less foreshortening than 3-point perspective. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the second vanishing point at the top of that initial first line that we've drawn, and we're going to draw it out towards the second vanishing point. And at the bottom of that initial line, we're going to go ahead and draw a line going to the second vanishing point. Then we're going to go ahead and draw a line going to the third vanishing point to kind of give us this, basically. Alright, so we have the left and the right faces of this rectangular box all laid out. So at this intersection right here, we can now just bring it over to the first vanishing point, and then bring this over to the second vanishing point. And that allows us to have a fully formed box. But, you know, I like to draw things out as if they're transparent. So let's go ahead and do so. Okay, and I just kind of want you to experiment with drawing out boxes, like draw out a couple of boxes in 3-point perspective. Just do it until you feel comfortable with it. Now, I'm only going to focus on doing this only for so long, for so much of this video, just simply because there's other things I kind of want to talk about that when dealing with 3-point perspective. There's other topics to discuss, but just go ahead and just practice this. If you, after trying for hours and hours, if you just cannot seem to construct a single box or something, or very many boxes without completely losing your equilibrium, then just keep practicing with 1-point and 2-point perspective until you feel like you're ready, until you feel like you've gotten some sort of equilibrium going on with perspective to the point to where you can reliably seem to draw things out the way that you want. Okay, I mean, even I have difficulty sometimes constructing some sort of box and getting getting all of its like anatomy to kind of fit with other parts of it. And so sometimes I have to actually erase different portions in order to get it to work, okay? And kind of sort of start over on a box here and there, or change the order in which I'm drawing my lines. That happens on occasion. So yeah, this is an exercise I want you to do. Draw out about 100 boxes on your canvas using 3-point perspective. See if you can get used to it. See if you can kind of construct a somewhat interesting looking composition with a whole bunch of boxes. All right, but for the remainder of the video, I kind of want to talk about something else, something that's more in depth than just, okay, draw out a bunch of boxes. I've done that with 1-point and 2-point perspective, but what's mostly important with 3-point perspective is the fact that there is so much foreshortening that it is very difficult for you to get your proportions correct. So let's say we have a highly foreshortened box, okay? So by that, what I mean is a box that is really close to the third vanishing point, all right? So I used the first and second vanishing points in order to draw out this top face for what will become a box. And then I go ahead and use the third vanishing point on all 4 corners of this top face. And I'm just going to use the first and second vanishing point in order to draw out the bottom face of this. One of the things about 3-point perspective is I find it difficult to draw the interior faces of a box, or to draw everything matching up perfectly. I find it difficult to do that inside of 3-point perspective, but it is doable. You just need to keep playing around with it a little bit. Okay, so we need to find the context of this box right here in relationship to itself. Now, what does that mean exactly? Okay, so let me go File, New, and show you guys a demonstration. Now, I've taught this before, but, you know, having a repeat doesn't hurt. Okay, so if I have a box right here, okay, let's just say this is a face to a box right there, okay? And I go ahead and extend the top and the bottom of it towards a vanishing point. Now, this is like a side orthographic view, okay? And the top and bottom of this box is being sent out towards a vanishing point. And if I go ahead and I find center just by drawing out an X, and I extend that center out towards the vanishing point, and I use this intersection, or this corner of the box, with this intersection right here, okay? And I get it to intersect right here. That intersection will give me a measurement. And that measurement is this. From this point to this point is a specific measurement, and it is the exact same measurement from this point right here to this point right here. These two equal one another. They are the exact same measurement. All right, and so if I were to, say, do that again, then I now have 2 measurements, okay, that are equal to the original object, which is this, okay, which is kind of cool, okay, but there's other little techniques that you can do with this, and I haven't shown this particular technique before. So here we have 1 and we have 2, okay, 2 measurements right here. So if I go ahead and create another layer and just start using a blue color, it'll be a good way to demonstrate this. So if I go like that, then this measurement that happens to exist within this region right here, this region right here equals the same measurement right here. So this equals the same measurement as this measurement right here. And so that means that this is 2 times as big as this object right here. All right, and that's what that means, and I can prove it to you. Okay, let me go ahead and use a red color to demonstrate. All right, so if I go like that, and then I go like that again, you can see that indeed, like, this is 1 and this is 2, so therefore 1, 2, you can 2 arrows pointing up at it. Up at it's saying it's 2 times as long as the original object, which is this right here. Okay, so if I go ahead and use blue once again, and you want to be careful with this because like it's really easy to like get it ever so slightly off, but you can go like so, okay, just like that. And this right here, so technically speaking, this should be like from this point here to this point here, this should be 4 times as big as that. So if we were to do that again, then it would wind up being like, if we were to do it again off the canvas, it would be 8 times as big as the original object out here. Okay, so and I can prove it to you. So this should be 4 within this region. So let me go ahead and measure that out. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and that's 4. Okay, so it was ever so slightly off, but it is pretty dang close to 4. So 4 times as big as the original object. So that, like, using this technique is a way of multiplying, I guess. Okay, but basically, in order to measure the proportions or to understand the proportions of an object in relationship to itself placed in a different location of the canvas, it would be like doing some measurements, kind of like what we've been doing, and coming up with this object off in the distance in the composition. Okay, we know that this is the same size as this out here, okay? These are the same size. And so, like, when you have a vanishing point right here, pointing up at it and such, and the camera is right here, you know, looking down at the scene, you know, it might be difficult to see the proportions. And when the camera is pointing down at the scene, it might be difficult to really know just how long this face is from here to here, okay? From here to here, okay? So it might be difficult to see that. But if you're able to push that same object out here and you're able to see just how long that face is, then you're able to kind of judge proportions a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and get into this and back out of that, okay? So what we can do is I'm going to go ahead and create another layer and create a correction layer gradient map, and I'm just going to go ahead and use a blue color and clip this gradient map to the layer below. I'm going to call it blue. Alright, so I'm going to extend this out towards the first vanishing point. Okay, alright, so we've gone ahead and done that, and now I'm just going to find center on this, and then I'm going to extend that center out towards vanishing point number 1, and you could, or you could do this on this face right here and point it all towards vanishing point number 2. It's all up to you what you want to do, okay? But this is just the way that I'm choosing to do it right now. So I'm just extending out the center towards vanishing point number 1, and excellent. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and create another layer real quick and put it underneath blue, deactivate its clipping, and then I'm going to go layer, correction layer, gradient map, and change its color to red, and call this red, and clip this gradient map to layer below. Alright, draw out an extension. Okay, and so that's 1 right there. Okay, so, or actually 2, because I have 1 and then 2 right here. And so if I measure this out like so, okay, so now this right here is 2 times, like if I wanted to multiply, is what I'm saying. And then I can do that once again, and now that's 4 times, okay? Alright, so that's about far enough, I think. So I can go ahead and draw out this whole face that happens to be 4 times the size of what I need, okay? Now I'm just going to go ahead and erase what I don't need out of this, and erase some stuff out here that I don't need, and then just go ahead and erase what I don't need out of the blue layer. Well, actually, let me keep some of that in there with the blue layer and just get rid of what I don't need of the blue layer. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is 4 times. Now, I've already taught how to split an object up by fourths, so that's pretty handy. So let's go ahead and do that with the blue layer, okay? So what we're able to do is we're able to just go from this corner to this corner. Well, okay, I'm seeing a problem. This halfway mark is just kind of getting in the way of me being able to see what I need to do. Okay, so I'm gonna go from this corner of this face over to this bottom corner, and then I'm gonna go to the other corner to the other corner. All right, and so now I have halfway, and I'm using the third vanishing point to draw halfway. So that's 1/2. If I deactivate this and then draw 1x, okay, wait, Okay, so if that's 1/2 right there, then I just need to erase this nonsense here, because it's kind of getting in the way of me visually seeing what I'm doing. And then I draw another X right here. Okay, so that right there is the 1/4 measurement line at the center of that super thin X. And I'm just going to use the third vanishing point to help me draw that out. Actually, I'm going to use my black layer to help me out with this, because it's just getting convoluted and mixed up with everything else. Okay, so now I'm going to deactivate my blue and red lines. Okay, so this face that exists right here in this region is the exact same as this face right here that's facing us, this left front face. They're the exact same. It's just one is further off in the distance as it extends off towards the vanishing point. Let me activate the blue and press Control A and delete, and select the red and delete, Control D. Alright, so now with the red layer, let's use the red layer. I'm just going to extend this out like so, and then I'm just going to bring these corners together like so. Okay, so that's the top face, and then I'm just going to bring this corner out, then I'm going to join these corners together, and I'm going to go like so. Okay, so you may not have thought that this box was as tall as it actually is. Like I said, there is so much foreshortening going on that when looking at this box and this box alone, you have no idea that it is actually this long. And if you don't want it to be that long, you need to actually see it, like you actually need to see its proportions in relationship to itself in another location, like so, okay? And if you decide, okay, yeah, I really don't like it being that tall, like you don't, like if you wanted this to be a coffee cup or something like that, I mean, well, first of all, you would want, if you wanted it to start out as the rough sketch of a coffee cup, you would want it to be more like that, I think. But if you wanted it to be a coffee cup, you might actually want it to, I don't know, maybe be about that tall instead. So that might help you out in kind of thinking about how to adjust things. Like maybe you just decide, okay, well, I want it to be about half as tall as what it currently is. Okay, well, that's fine. Let's see what it would look like if it was half as tall. Okay, let's see how it would look. You actually measure half and actually measure all the way around it, and then get rid of all the junk that you don't need. Okay, let's say that is what we want. Okay, let's say from here to here, that looks right, but we don't want this stuff down here. Okay, fair enough. All right, well then in that case we can use the first vanishing point and bring this along, and use the first vanishing point and bring this along, and then just use a second vanishing point and join these together. Okay, so now we have the right measurement. We can go to our black layer and we can get rid of the excess. So now we know how that is. Now I would keep this box that exists here, I would keep it inside of a sketch layer somewhere, okay? And I would just keep it around, especially if it's not intended to be part of the composition. If you're just judging proportions of an object in relationship to itself in a different portion of the canvas, it's not intended as being part of the composition. So I would just kind of keep it around in some sort of layer or something, or if I was working traditionally, I would just kind of keep it around with lightly drawn out lines and kind of use it to judge other proportions of other objects as well around the same region and stuff like that. That's basically what I would do. Like, let's say I drew out this sort of thing. What is this object in relationship to this object? Okay, so at that point, we would continue with the same sort of thought experiment sort of thing. Like, we would just move this over, and we don't necessarily have to do the same number of measurements. Like, that's not really all that necessary. It's just to get an idea of what the proportions are. Okay, cool. All right, so now I have that measurement out there, and I can kind of see what this object is. Like, you can't, like, it's not like working inside of Blender or Maya or something. You can't just rotate around the object. So you need to have something to be able to see what it is at different angles or from different perspectives. And this is at least how I go about doing it. And so, like, I go ahead and I bring this edge out, and then maybe this corner out, and then I go ahead and go like that, and then use the third vanishing point to kind of bring this up, and then start joining them up together. Okay, so this is what this object is, the second object is, in relationship to our first object from a different vantage point on the canvas, okay? And if I don't like that, if I decide, oh, I don't want that, I want it to actually be like 1/4 larger going this way towards the second vanishing point, 1/4 wider in that sense. Okay, well, in that case, what I would do is I would go measure halfway, and then I would go ahead, well, let's use red. Red hasn't been used that much. I would measure halfway, and so now I have halfway, and then I would measure an X right here, and then that's 1/4 right there. Then let's switch to blue. I have halfway already measured out right here, so let's use the second vanishing point to send halfway towards the second vanishing point, and draw out the bottom and the top going out towards the second vanishing point, and right here is the 1/4 measurement mark there. So I would then go like that, and then I would use my black lines to go like that, and then I would, whoa, I need to actually lock this to my vanishing points. Okay, so that's how I would do it. All right, I know it seems a little bit convoluted. Once I would find out what I am in need of out here, I would go ahead and extend it out to my other box. So I measured 1/4 of it out. So what I would do at this point is I would just grab all these measurements and just delete them, at least in this situation. And then I would just extend this 1/4 measurement out here, and then grab this corner right here and extend it out using the first vanishing point to do that, and then bring it up and then extend it out like so. And then, because proportions are very difficult to really get a grasp on inside of 3-point perspective. It may not seem very important. It may sound like, oh, this guy is just overcomplicating this stuff. Like, why would I need any of that? Maybe what some people are thinking. Why is Orphan Last overcomplicating all of this? What the hell happened to my first box? For some reason it got deleted. Oh, right, it's because I deleted my measurements. Oh, okay, and I never drew them out in black. When you're just working with just boxes, like basic geometric shapes, of course this seems trivial. But let's say this is a full-on composition. Let's say you have park benches and you have cars and stuff like that. You're going to want to make sure that your park benches don't wind up being bigger than your cars, and etc., etc. If this is a person, maybe a park bench would be half the size of this. So, I would measure about half that. And so, the park bench would be something like that. And then I would go about bringing that park bench elsewhere in the composition so that I would have some sort of comprehension as to what it is in the scene. And then once I bring the top over here, maybe the top would, the top of it, using the third vanishing point, okay, bringing this over here, okay, bringing the top of it over here, you're going to want to make sure that the top of this park bench that you're going to be placing here, if you really were going to be drawing out a park bench, and if this box really did represent a person, you would want to make sure that the proportions are right, that your park bench is about the right size. You don't want a park bench to be this big at one part of the composition, and as it extends off in the distance, all of a sudden you draw a park bench that big, because it may be still really small out here, the park bench, but it's still like if you walked over to it, you don't want it to get really big in comparison. It's hard for me to really describe. This is why you need to measure things out, so that things off in the distance look right, so that things up close that are really foreshortened look right, and so you need to judge proportions. And one way to do that is to judge an object in relationship to itself in a different location in the composition, and you're even able to use that said object to judge other sized objects, and then bringing them like closer to the third vanishing point, where there's a lot more foreshortening going on, where it's a lot more difficult to judge proportions. Like out here, there's a lot less foreshortening going on in relationship to the third vanishing point. Now there's a lot, like the closer you get to the first vanishing point, like if you notice, all of the left faces, like this face right here and this face right here, they're getting a lot more they're getting way more foreshortened. But this face right here and this face right here that are extending out towards the second vanishing point, they're not. Okay, now if we had chosen to bring like this box and this box further on towards the second vanishing point, then we would have seen that those right faces would have become more foreshortened than the faces extending out towards the first vanishing point. Okay, that's what we would have wound up seeing. Okay, I hope I'm making sense. Anyhow, context. Understanding the context of an object in order to judge proportions. It's important, and what I've just described in this video will save you hundreds and hundreds of hours of struggling, doing the extra work of drawing out a box, just a box. That's it, a box. Off in the distance, the same size as a box, closer to the canvas, like closer to the camera, that's more foreshortened. It will save you. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of frustration, and it might even save the entire composition. Okay, hopefully I've been able to describe this in a way that you guys can comprehend. Now in the future, I do intend on cueing you guys in on my process of drawing an entire image in 2-point perspective and 3-point perspective and all of that, and I plan on continuing to do that in the future whenever I feel like I'm in the mood to, I guess, spend tons and tons and tons of time editing together a video. Like, just generally, I think that maybe it's educational for you guys in order to see things like that. But ultimately, the only thing that I'm able to truly do is kind of cue you in on a process, I guess, somewhat as much as I possibly can while I'm composing an image. And also, all that I can really do is kind of teach you the rules, the basic concepts and stuff. But the strategies, the actual techniques and stuff like that you need to kind of hone down in order to be able to accomplish something in the least number of steps, that's all on you. Like I said, drawing in perspective is like playing a game of chess, like a single player sort of game of chess, and your opponent is yourself. You're creating this puzzle, and in the end what you wind up with is an awesome picture. And so yeah, I mean, like ultimately I'm not able to teach you every single strategy. That's all up to you. You have to do trial and error and come up with like tons of crappy images until you finally come up with things that are looking pretty brilliant, and expect to be really frustrated for a really long time. The most I can do is try to save you from making some mistakes. Even regardless of me teaching you, you're probably going to wind up making the same mistakes that I did. Just simply because sometimes, even after hearing information, you're wondering, what's the value of that information? Why did he even cover that information? And then you'll, like, sometimes you ignore it, or I ignore it, and then later on, after a school of hard knocks, I realize, oh, I was taught this forever ago. I see the value in it now. Kind of weird how that works out. Anyways, yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I do plan on drawing out an image in 3-point perspective sometime in the near future. and trying to explain each and every single line that I'm drawing in that process, like I have with the other types of perspective and such. I don't know if those videos have been helpful to you guys. Make sure to leave a comment letting me know if these videos are helping you out, especially those ones where I'm describing each and every single line when drawing in perspective. Those take a lot of effort, and if they're not really helping people, then I don't know why I would continue making them. So just let me know. Actually leave a comment in those videos, or in this video as well, if it's helping you out. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications and participate with my community a bit more, feel free to join my Discord. A link is in the video description below. And if you'd like to support this channel, there's an image of my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen. It leads to my Patreon, or feel free to purchase one of my t-shirts. A link to my Teespring is in the video description below. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.